Well, welcome to today's painting session. I'm working on this this second layer of this painting I started the other day, actually a week ago now, and it's time I got a second layer on. So I'm doing a time lapse on one camera and I'm doing a video for YouTube on the other. So you're hearing this, you're hearing it on YouTube because it's horizontal format, which I can't put on my other formats. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll bit of chatting as I paint, and it really depends on how much I can talk while I'm painting today. I'll explain that as we get through, but basically speaking, I've got a abstraction. This is based on a tree trunk that had fallen over, and the really amazing thing about this tree is the trunk had all these spikes where the roots had gone to a spike, which is quite unusual. It sort of didn't, this particular tree, I think it's a turpentine gun or a ironbark, one of the two, but it could be turpentine. And you're sort of looking at the bottom, so if you imagine the tree trunk's lying down that way somewhere or that way, I'm not sure which way is up, and I'm deliberately not having a which way is up. So, so what I'm doing, I'm aware that things aren't necessarily in the video and in the frame on the vertical, so you'll notice I've got my palette here. I'll just put it on the painting for a minute, and I've got 3 tubes. Now normally your medium's clear, so you don't actually have anything in them at all. This is clear you work with, but I'm actually deliberately treating it a little bit like a watercolour wash, and so I've actually pre-inked, if you like, the tubes, and I'm using, basically I've been using 3 colours. Prussian Blue is this nice sky blue, Cobalt Violet, which is this one, and Australian Red Gold, which has got this lovely orange in that colour as it goes down. I may add other colours in later, but I'm also using a Tinting White, which is a transparent white. Now if you're using whites, and everyone knows that whites are opaque as anything, well, Langridge actually make a transparent white, so I'm using that. Now the rest of the paints are by my favourite company, Art Spectrum. So really high quality paint, very nice to use. So what I'm going to do basically is, these are my favourite brushes, and I'm going to basically use one brush per colour. Now, so I'm going to get started. I'll put that there for a minute and show you how I'm using that. But I'm on the floor because I don't want it dripping. So I want it flat, and I don't have a table where I am at the moment. So I'm on the floor. This is Norwegian wood. And she turned around and then noticed there wasn't a chair. Oh, and when I awoke. Yeah, well, Norwegian wood, there was no table in that room either. Well, not this one anyhow. That's because I'm preparing this house to sell, and all our furniture has gone down to Tasmania. So I don't have anything except a couch to lie on. So I'm just going to move myself around a bit, and I'm not flexible. I don't do yoga. It's just going to be uncomfortable for me, but hey, we will see how we go. So I'm just going to decide, because I'm using a lot of the blue, I'll use the big brush for the blue, and I've pre-mixed this with a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the white. So I've actually got a lighter, a sort of more deliberate colour today. So with these big brushes, I love painting them on the side. So as I come through, one of the things I'll try and do today is make sure I got any white canvas I don't want covered. But I'm also going to be trying to leave a texture with this paint. And I can always add more of the colours to my brush. So if I want to sort of go whiter, I'll add that to there, and I'll do it like that. So you can sort of see I'm adding a little bit of white into there. And so instead of not just being the canvas, I'm actually adding a texture over the top. So why do I do this? Now, what I'm doing here is not that much different to what I do when I'm doing my realistic landscape plein air paintings. I paint with layers, and I build layers to build density and texture. So already this area here is looking more textured. Now, if I wanted to get rid of this pencil lines from the original drawing that I did, so the drawing came from a photograph I took, but you'll notice I'm not using a photograph anymore. I'm very deliberately abstracting. So I'm actually going to use the white to, to get rid of that a little bit, but it's not really getting rid of it. There's a little bit more there. I don't really need to get rid of it. And there's a bit of a secret there. There's a lot of artwork by really well-known and famous artists right through the years who have their pencil and their pre-drawing stuff in the canvas. But because I'm working in really light oils, those are going to be a little bit more dominant in this picture. It depends on how many layers I do. If I do 3 or 4 layers, they'll start to cover up. You'll notice if I'm putting that white on top of the dark there, it's very obvious that I've got white in the brush. But I'm actually not planning on doing that there. I'll come back now. If I go back, I'll just sort of fix that to what I want. So I'm going to knock back the intensity of that dark. So that dark Prussian blue is almost a black. So what I'm doing here now is I've got a bit of white on my brush, and I'm going to just, using still a fair bit of the Prussian, but I've got white. See that? White sitting on there. I'm actually going to add some texture into that shape. So it just stops being a black hole. And I think that's one of the things that I'm doing today, is just avoiding really thin looking paintings. So I'm a very firm believer that when you're painting, you're creating texture, and you're creating things that really make the eye want to sing. And let's take a little bit of that heavy out because I want it to be lighter than that. So I'm going to pull that up and put it somewhere else. And so I'm wanting to create a surface which you, the viewer, can look at and be intrigued by and come in and look at. So as I do this, obviously that is the yellow gold, and I'm putting the blue over the top, so it's turning it green at the moment. I don't necessarily want a lot of green. When I painted the original, I actually used a thicker oil. I used this number 2 medium. Well, you can't see that in the video there, you can see it in the other one. It's a classic medium, or a normal consistency medium. I've also got a fatter one, and I'm using that. I was using that on this one, so it's already got a sort of a thicker feel to it. And that was just to keep the green and the blues separated. But you sort of see, because I'm painting it thin, it's behaving like watercolour. It's actually interacting with that edge and pulling off it and giving you some really interesting textures. So if you're a watercolour painter, you know what I mean by that. You actually use this accidental interaction of the pigment on the surface. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to have to move this a minute because I need to work around. You'll notice I like working around all sorts of parts in the canvas as I see what my brush is doing to it. I've got this lovely violet going on underneath that. I'll come back and I'll re-establish some of that as I come back into my violet tube. And all I'm trying to do at the moment is just add some texture into what I'm doing and what I've got. And that's really important, because I'll make this one quite white up here in the corner. What happens to give you some complexity of surface is that if you can get your layers interacting with the top layer through to the bottom layer, that's what transparency does, you can get more complication without being fussy. You're actually controlling that blending or mixing. Oh, I have to move my feet around so I can lean over a little bit better. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just laying down some paint and texture onto my blue. It's really difficult, or less comfortable than I would like. But then again, hey, I don't want this stuff dripping. So if I hold it up, it'll just sort of slide down the canvas because I'm putting it on really thin. And you know, sort of you see instructions on don't use medium without paint. Well, that's true, but I've got paint on just a little bit, and I've been doing this for a long time. There's a real secret here though that's really, really, really important. First layer I did was really, really thin. It was a very thin medium. It wasn't terps. Never used terps for thinning paint. Only use terps for washing paint. Don't put terps on your canvas. Terps on your canvas will make your paints dry and flake and be flaky. So if you've been doing that, I just encourage you to stop it and start using oil mediums to thin your paint when you're painting. So and that just means, even so, if you're sort of wanting that watercolour effect, you can get that with your oil mediums. You just need to use them thin enough. And I've got that effects coming up in this work, which is sort of nice. I like it. So, and I could do this quite a number of layers and get it quite thick in the oil. Fortunately today, the oils, and this would be a warning to those of you who like to use, you know, the traditional formulas that the people back in the Renaissance and others used. Those formulas will yellow with age, and so I really strongly suggest you use modern formulas, because they're actually being designed to be to not yellow over time, and that's really important if you're painting in layers like this. Because if I painted with traditional Daymar varnishes and Cobalt varnishes like this in there, and some of the first paintings I ever did back in the early 70s, I used Cobalt varnish, and you know, those areas of thin have gone quite yellow. So please, 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 please use modern glazes, because they won't do that to your painting over time. You know what? If I've got 5 or 6 layers of oil on this, I don't want the whole thing turning yellow and you know, conservator later on saying, oh yeah, it wasn't supposed to be that colour. That's obviously the varnishes that is used that's gone off, and go take it off, which will mean they'll take off the painting. So I don't want that. So it's one of those things I sort of worry about a bit. Is what are they going to do to this painting when I'm dead and gone in 300 years time to make it look like it is? So hopefully somewhere along life, some of the videos I make will show up. I'll just sort of turn this around. There's no top or bottom of this painting. I've got a couple of directions I don't mind that I might end up being those directions, but I'm not committed yet to this is an up or a down. I'm just enjoying playing it. So what I'm trying to do here is, by keep adding this white in, I'm trying to keep it light and keep it friendly, if you like. And I'm just using this transparent white with the brush that's got the blue in it, and just bringing in that texture. In a minute I'll change the we're going to have to put more of this white in, because I'll be using it for all the colours, but yeah, I've already used that bit up, Ruskies. So I'm just at the moment just adding some oil in, getting the surface active, and I'll obviously do some work in here, but I'll have to put a bit more out than I did before. Hold on a second. I don't think you can see this in the shot, so I've got the canvas right here. Let's put a bit more out. As I said, this has only been a paint that I've used for the last 3 or 4 years. Didn't know it existed before, and I know now, and I'm using it. This is beautiful. So a transparent white, which means that you can paint white. You can put it on quite thick like there, and it will stick around as thick, but then you can put it on as light, and you can see through it. And that's really important if you're wanting to lighten up a painting without changing its colour significantly. You can throw this on. Where before, if you use white, just a straight white, a zinc white or a titanium white, because they're so thick, It's the reason why zinc oxide and titanium oxide are used in sunscreens, because they block light. They are opaque. They don't let light through. Now there are titaniums and zincs in here, but one thing that's been discovered, and I wonder whether this paint has been discovered, which came first, the sunscreen or the paint? But they discovered with sunscreen that if you take your oxides in your sunscreen, and there's a hair built in there, that's whether it's my beard hair or hair, it's not my hair. That if you grind it really fine, it becomes transparent and still blocks out the light. So it's like a really, oh, that's nice. I like what's happening there because I've got that darker. See that? Oh, and I'm now blending that back in. See, that sort of goes. So I like what's just happened there. And I thought, right, I'm going to use that. And I'm doing that over the bit I've already got. So what I'm going to do now is deliberately recreate what I just did then over here, because I know what I did a minute ago to do that. So I'm just going to take my Prussian Blue and with a bit of my white. Now be careful here, we're going to use this white for the other colours as well. It's going to be an issue. So I'm just going to be a bit of a mix of this Prussian and the white, just to give that less of that, as I was saying before, less of that dense, almost like a black hole. Often with a paint you get black equivalents by using a deep blue, an ultramarine, normally not a Prussian, and a crimson, and put them together and they combine to give you a blackish, black, as close to black as you can without using black. I'm someone who loves using black. I don't have any prejudice against that as a colour. A lot of artists, it's like sacrilege if you're an impressionist painter, because impressionists sort of stopped using it, so everyone thought that's what you had to do. You don't have to do it at all. But it's sort of like almost a cult following now about those who use black and who don't use black. Yeah, any colour will sort of give you that deep tone. And there's a transparent black, so the heads up, there's a transparent white. There's been a transparent black for a lot longer, and I love the transparent black. But I get a bit addicted to it in my painting, my regular painting of trees in the landscape, so I'm trying to use it less, because it does darken your paintings up a little bit too much, I think, sometimes. I'm just going to put that on. I'll make that sort of a nice darker edge in there. It's got this canvas is a rounded edge canvas, and that sort of be a pain sometimes. Simply because when you go, if you put it straight as a canvas on a wall, that darker, you get the curve. And if you want to put it in a frame, that curve gets covered up. That's fine. But if you just paint your edge white, for instance, which I often do with the canvas, so if you're buying frames that you don't need and the customer doesn't want, and here we are, just done the Australian wave. Australian wave is flipping the fly out of your face, in case you didn't know that. So I've got a lot of people who follow me all over the world, so most of you won't know the Australian wave. It's like do 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 do. You can't know whether you can see that at all. I'm hoping you can sort of see a bit of my face here. You may not, because I'm facing the canvas, and you're probably seeing my beautiful beanie that my daughter made for me. But so I'm very deliberately sort of blurring the lines here with this, and what I'm going to do now, that I've sort of used this across my bits of blue and got those blue active, so I'm going to come back now to this area. That little fly is annoying me. It's sort of the end of summer here. Obviously it's, well, technically it's autumn now, because it's March, but where I'm just literally 50 metres that way, there's a paddock, and there's cows in that paddock, which as soon as you've got cows you have flies. And at the moment, it's not the big blowies you've got, it's these little annoying ones. Just sort of like to come cozy up to you and hop on your skin and tickle it. It's doing that to me right on the hand that I'm leaning on at the moment. I'm trying to ignore it. But if it does it around your face, you start doing the wave. So I don't want to sort of unpaint what I've got, but I'm just sort of playing with the edges here. And because I've got some of that already down, as in the whites, and I'm putting this on top of where I've had the white. Here's a good example. I've got this interaction going on now between the layers, and that just brings some interest. And I'll probably come back toward the end and redefine some of my lines. You know, starting today I've got a lot of sharp lines, and if I get rid of them too much I might bring some more back. But I'm really quite keen at the moment to do some blending and texturing. Turn this around. I'm going to do that same. So that's how I'm rolling the brush like that. I'm using the width of this brush as much as the tip of the brush, and that's what I really like about this long staple filbert. You've got this sort of surface that you're painting with, and you can do it most of the lines on this were done with this brush, or you know, all the blue ones certainly were, and you can do quite a fine line with this, but you can also cover a lot of area quickly, which is really nice. So I'm just sort of texturing in here at the moment. So what I might do now is I'm just going to turn this around, do the other bit a bit more. So if you're there and you're watching the video, put in the comments. I haven't worked out quite whether I've got the comments set right on YouTube to allow people to comment and me to read them. I haven't figured that one out yet. At least I haven't done it on the live. But if you're reading your comments and you sort of say, hey, I've got like that, or yeah, I've got this way now, you say, oh, I like this way, not the other way. Let me know what you think. What do you think? Is this the way you want it? You want it around the other way? What's up and down? You know, it depends on how much you want it to be a landscape and how much you want it to be an abstraction. Because ultimately, in a sense, it's a portrait of a tree trunk. So it is. I'm working over here. I've just turned around so I can work on this part of the canvas. I'm now wanting to work over here. So you know, I'll just ignore that for a second and sort of get back to why I turned it around. So I keep dipping that into the oil to get it nice and thin, and I'm sort of creating more space and interaction there, making that sort of edging a bit closer so it's not quite so abrupt. And I'm not following anything in particular. I'm not trying now to make it look like the set of roots that I originally photographed. I'm just responding to the picture. If you like what you're seeing, and make a comment below, subscribe and follow me if you're not doing that already, and you know, just encourage artists, whether it's me or another artist. It doesn't really matter at one level. I have, you know, thousands and thousands of people follow me on Instagram, actually about 70,000, and I'm not even 1,000 subscribers yet on YouTube. And I'm looking to build to that. So if you're not subscribing to me yet on YouTube, I'd really appreciate the support by subscription, because that then feeds in the algorithm. The more followers you have, the more your work gets shown. And not only that, but with YouTube, the more followers you have, the more chance of you earning money. And if I can earn a little bit of money from doing this and showing what I'm doing, that just means I have money to paint. I have more chance of keeping on painting. And most of you cannot afford to buy my paintings, so how do you support someone when you love their work? Or you know, like a lot of my followers are artists already, and your walls are full of your own work, you don't need to be buying mine. Well, one way to support is just to make sure that you feed the algorithms of the artists, and and you follow them, and you watch them. And with YouTube, this is a long video, so you get to you know, if you watch to the end, that just adds to the audience. And if a lot of people follow to the end and build up the hours, YouTube pays you by how many hours people have watched, because how many hours people have watched has got to do with how many ads you get to see in the middle of the thing. So you've probably gone to an ad break by now, and I don't get paid for that at the moment because I don't have enough followers. Later on I will get paid a little bit for ad breaks, but the more people who watch, the more ad breaks get played, then the more an artist could earn from that. It's a sort of a funny game. In a sense it's a game, but you know, the company wants to make money, and I can't blame them for that. They need to make money. If they didn't, I wouldn't be showing my videos on their channel, or anyone's videos on their channel. It would be a dead world for stuff. So you young people will know that really well, better than I do. You old people, you know, it's like, oh, why do I need to do that? When I was, you know, I think I got my first PC computer. Nothing called a phone that had a camera on it. Not even a phone. Not my phone was dial-up. My first computer was when I was 26, and I'll tell you what, it couldn't do very much at all. I did use it for a bit of graphics. It was a colour machine, Apple IIgs. Just gonna make sure I go in the right hole now. But yeah, it's I love what's happened here is I do that and put it on that blue. The blue and the violet have combined together to provide some really lovely interaction of the surface. So this violet is Cobalt Violet, and technically it's a very modern paint. I was first synthesized in, I think, 1857. So it's a very young paint in terms of paints. You know, Prussian Blue's been around a lot longer than that. And the yellow gold's even is very young. It's only a new paint. But the Impressionists, Monet and Pissarro and Cicely and Signat, all the folk in that time, they fell in love with this purple. And so you see the water lilies. It's just sort of like, you know, you can think about, you know, these roots could be in the water of water lilies at this stage. I'm sort of playing with this. Oh yeah, got to pick up that blue. When you do this, you sort of pick up the paint you've just had happening, and so that makes it a bit more interactive and much more interesting. So this was the paint that revolutionised Impressionism, because they suddenly could use violet as their shadow material. You know, they did away with the greys and they went into the violets. So yeah, it's a quite expensive paint, mind you. The thing about it is that with purples, it is virtually impossible to mix violets from just using, you know, standard, the right ones, but the standard ultramarine, which is also a reasonably expensive pigment, but ultramarine and your crimsons, lakes and things, you can't make decent purples that way. They just don't make this colour when you use them. They go muddy. So the invention of this particular, or the synthesis of this particular cobalt, it's a compound of cobalt, actually enabled the Impressionists to paint paintings like Impression Sunday, Sunshine, and Manet's Water Lilies. So here, if you sort of notice, it's sort of a bit puddly and pooly. That's exactly what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm just trying to create puddlies and poolies. I'm wanting the texture of one wheat to go over the top of the other, And that complicates and makes more interesting what I did last week. I've said this many times and I'll keep saying it, but a painting's got to work, and it's got to work on three levels, if you like. It's got to work from a long distance, and you know, you get the paint, say, oh wow, go back a bit and see what it's like when you go back, and oh wow, I can see it now, you know, oh there's a face here I didn't see before, or something like that. Painting's got to work at a distance. If it doesn't work at a distance, you won't come up and have a look at it close up. But a painting's also got to work close up. So when you come up and look at it up here with your nose in front of the canvas, you should be able to look at the canvas and go, wow, look at what's happened, look at what the artist has done with the paint, look at how that paint's interacting. I've just spent some time around the galleries in Europe, which is a real blessing. I haven't been to Europe ever before, and I've just been into the Berlin National Gallery, the Prague National Galleries, and Barcelonan, Catalonian Gallery, historical old school galleries, if you like, not the modern so much, although I did with Czechoslovakia and Prague. I went to the beautiful modern Prague Cubist galleries. They're quite amazing. Yeah, one of the things I'm always doing there is looking up close at the paint and seeing what the artists were doing with their paint and enjoying and learning from that, because what you don't get that when you look at a book. You can't get that on a TV screen. No matter how you try, you just do not see what they're doing. When you're looking at it on social media, if it's a little, TV monitor on your camera, or even if it's projected, it takes a fair bit. I think that's why people are really loving these Monet and Van Gogh and these experience exhibitions where you go in and they've got all the floors and the carpets and everything is TV screen floors, no carpets, floors and the walls, and they've got this moving experience of all these painters and paintings. The reason why I think they're successful is that because they're so big and people are interacting they're actually interacting with the surface of the painting more than the painting itself, and they're starting to see what's going on behind the water lilies or in the textures of the sunflowers. And you can see that if you're sitting in front of a canvas, even if it's quite a small canvas in life, but you can't see that on a little screen. And I think that's why these exhibitions are becoming really successful, is that people are getting this experience, and the experience of seeing the world of the artist. And ultimately it's just seeing the world of the artist up front like this and up close. But it's, you can walk through it and become a part of it. So that's a really sort of a dynamic thing that's been happening lately, is that, and of course what's going to happen is that virtual reality will start to dictate that as well. And sometime in the near future, I think pretty near future, you'll be able to experience me painting in virtual reality and have the ability yourself to oh, I'm interested in this bit, and come out and just come and zoom in and have a look at that while I'm painting something over here. Or what's he doing with his brush there? I want to have a better look at that, so I'll go have a look. What have I got just done then? Oh, I'll just put some blue on there, I think. That's alright. If I've got blue on there, I'll just use it. Blue on half the brush and one on the other. So yeah, I think things are becoming really interesting in the media space, and I'm not against it. I was an early adopter of things, and you can tell by the fact that I'm a 65, 66-year-old person doing YouTube videos and things like that they don't scare me. A lot of my generation, I wouldn't touch that. Like, how could I possibly do that? Well, I've done some work and learnt some multimedia stuff. I don't put a lot of time into some of the things that some might, because I put more time into the actual painting. I just put the camera up there and let it run and show you what it's like raw. Never really edit my work. The only time I edit something is normally to make it within 10 seconds if it's a reel, so that it gets a better algorithm flow. Somewhere up there, one of my cameras is doing my old phone's doing a time lapse. It's got it there, so I might just and I've been going for a little while. Before I start working on the gold, so I've got this sort of happening at the moment. It's one of those things about being old. My diabetes is catching up with me this minute, so I need to go have a fraction of a break. So I'm going to hop up and turn off the camera and come back in a minute to start working on the gold.